The meeting took place on a neutral space station at the edge of Velthar territory. Admiral Park Soo-jin arrived with a small diplomatic team, while Commander Veltanos came with an entire fleet. But when they met in the station's main conference room, it was just the two of them facing each other across a simple table. "You came," Soo-jin said simply. "I gave my word," Veltanos replied. "The Velthar honor their agreements, even with inferior species." The alien commander was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps we were wrong about who is inferior." They sat in silence for several minutes. Around them, the space station hummed with activity as representatives from 17 different species prepared for the most important negotiation in galactic history. "My empire is collapsing," Veltanos said finally. "Your ideas have spread to every world we control. Our slaves have become rebels. Our subjects have become enemies." "They were always your enemies," Soo-jin replied. "You just forced them to hide it. What would you have us do? We cannot simply release everyone and pretend the past 1,000 years never happened. No, you can't. But you can acknowledge what you did was wrong and work to make it right." Veltanos leaned back in his chair. "And if we refuse? Then your empire falls anyway. The only difference is whether it falls with you fighting change or helping to build something better. You would destroy us. We don't want to destroy anyone. But we won't let you continue enslaving people either." The alien commander studied her carefully. "You really believe different species can live together as equals?" "I know they can. We've seen it work on dozens of human colonies. But those are small communities. An empire spanning 1,000 worlds? Start with 1 world, then 2, then 10. You don't have to change everything at once." Veltanos activated a holographic display showing the current state of his empire. Red zones marked rebellious sectors, and they covered more than half of Velthar space. "Even if I wanted to change, my own people would never accept it. The ruling council sees negotiation as weakness. Then maybe the ruling council needs to change too. You ask the impossible." Soo-jin leaned forward. "Commander, let me tell you about impossibility. 6 months ago, it was impossible for humans to stand up to the Velthar Empire. 3 months ago, it was impossible for the Aquari to refuse a direct order. Last month, it was impossible for 17 different species to work together." She gestured toward the window, where ships from many different worlds waited in formation. "Look outside. Tell me what you see." Veltanos looked. In the space around the station, hundreds of ships waited. Human vessels flew alongside Aquari craft. Zethkari builders worked with Halani farmers, and species that had been enemies for centuries stood together. "I see chaos," he said quietly. "I see hope." The door to the conference room opened, and a small delegation entered. Kang Min-soo led a group of former slaves, representatives from every species that had suffered under Velthar rule. "Commander Veltanos," Min-soo said in his careful English, "we have come to speak with you." The alien commander looked uncomfortable. "I do not negotiate with former property." "That's exactly the problem," said Dr. Han So-young, who had arrived with the human delegation. "You still think of them as property instead of people. They are not my equals." "Why not?" asked Dr. Shin Woo-jin. "Because they're physically different? Because they come from different worlds? Because you decided they weren't?" Veltano started to answer, then stopped. He looked at each of the former slaves in turn. "You hate me," he said finally. "Yes," Min-soo replied honestly. "But humans have taught us that hate is not the only choice." "What do you mean?" A Zethkari representative stepped forward, her crystalline body chiming softly as she moved. "We can choose to build instead of destroy. We can choose healing instead of revenge." "You would forgive what we have done?" "Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting," said a Halani elder. "We will never forget, but we can choose not to let the past control our future." Veltanos looked around the room at all the faces watching him. Humans and aliens, former slaves and free beings, all united in their desire for something better. "What would you have me do?" he asked. Admiral Soo-jin stood up. "First, publicly acknowledge that slavery is wrong and that the Velthar Empire has committed crimes against sentient beings. That would be seen as weakness by my people. No, said Colonel Ju Hyun-soo from the back of the room. It would be seen as strength. It takes courage to admit you were wrong. Second, Soo-jin continued, release all enslaved beings immediately and provide them with resources to rebuild their lives. That would collapse our economy. Then build a new economy, one based on cooperation instead of exploitation. Third, allow free elections on all worlds. Let each species choose their own government. Veltanos was quiet for a long time. You ask me to destroy everything I have fought to build. We ask you to build something worth fighting for, said Dr. Lee Yoonji. Your people have been living in fear for 2,000 years. Isn't it time to try living in hope? The alien commander stood and walked to the window. Outside, the mixed fleet of ships continued their patient vigil. And if I refuse? Then your empire burns, Soo-jin said, simply. And a lot of good people die in the fire. But if I agree, then you help us build something new, something where no one has to kneel. Veltanos turned back to face the room. In my culture, the defeated kneel before the victorious. This isn't about victory or defeat, Soo-jin replied. This is about choosing what kind of galaxy we want to live in. You have defeated us. By all rights, I should kneel before you. The alien commander slowly lowered himself to one knee, his forearms spread in the traditional Velthar gesture of submission. The room fell completely silent. Then Admiral Park Soo-jin did something that no one expected. She stepped around the table and knelt beside him. Stand up, she said gently. We don't want subjects or masters. We want equals. She offered him her hand. After a moment's hesitation, Veltanos took it, and they stood together. How do we begin? He asked. With the hardest words in any language, she replied. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Let me help fix this. Veltanos looked around the room at all the beings he had helped to enslave. He thought about his empire, built on fear and maintained through cruelty. He thought about the dark fleet that had destroyed, his people's original home and the centuries of running that had followed. Then he thought about the human colonies Dr. Yoonji had shown him, where different species worked together freely. He thought about the hope in the voices of the former slaves who had offered forgiveness instead of revenge. I was wrong, he said quietly. Then louder, I was wrong. The Velthar Empire was built on injustice. We are sorry. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Kang Min-soo stepped forward. Apology accepted, he said. Now let's get to work. 6 months later, the first free elections in Velthar space were held on the world of Keth Prime. The Aquari elected Kang Min-soo as their representative to the new Galactic Council. The Velthar ruling council was dissolved and replaced with an elected government. Veltanos, to everyone's surprise, was chosen to lead the new Velthar Republic. The transition was not easy. Some Velthar refused to accept the changes and had to be forced out of power. Some former slaves wanted revenge rather than reconciliation. There were conflicts, disagreements, and moments when it seemed like the whole thing might fall apart. But there was also something new in the galaxy. Hope. Human colonies opened their doors to refugees from the former empire. Velthar engineers worked alongside former slaves to rebuild damaged worlds. Species that had been enemies for centuries began to trade, communicate, and even become friends. Admiral Park Soo-jin stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as construction ships from 12 different species worked together to build the new Galactic Council headquarters. Admiral, said her communications officer, we're receiving a message from Earth. They want to know when you're coming home. Soo-jin smiled. Tell them I am home, right here, watching the birth of something beautiful. She thought back to that first encounter, when Veltanos had demanded that humans kneel. She had told him to kneel first, never imagining that one day they would stand together as equals. Sometimes, she reflected, the best victories were the ones where nobody had to kneel at all. The galaxy would never be perfect. There would always be conflicts, disagreements, and those who preferred power over justice. But for the first time in millennia, every being in known space had a choice about how to live their life. And that, Admiral Park Soo-jin thought, was worth fighting for. High Commander Zekthano stood before the Strategic War Council of the Velthar Empire, delivering the worst report in the Empire's 1,000-year history. Production has stopped on 47 worlds, he announced. Slave populations across 8 sectors have declared what they call general strikes. Our entire economic system is collapsing. The council members looked at each other in disbelief. Some of these beings had ruled for centuries and had never faced a crisis like this. "How many troops do we need to restore order?" asked War Counselor Velmectos. "That's the problem, sir. We've tried force. When we punish striking workers, other species stop working in protest. When we attack one world, 3 others rebel. The Yamaw? Humans have taught them something called solidarity." Council leader Velagros activated a holographic display showing the Empire's territory. Red zones marked areas of rebellion, and there were too many to count. "What are our options?" he demanded. "Commander Veltanos has proposed using the world killer weapons on the most rebellious planets," Zekthano said quietly. The room fell, silent. World killer weapons had never been used against inhabited planets before. They were a final option, meant only for the most extreme situations. "Would that stop the rebellion?" asked Velmectos. "Unknown, sir. The humans might see it as proof that we are evil. It could make the rebellion worse." "Evil?" Velagros looked confused. "We are maintaining order. How is that evil?" Zekthanos hesitated. "Sir, the humans have introduced concepts that our psychology teams cannot understand. They speak of right and wrong as if these things exist independently of strength and power." "Explain." "They believe that some actions are wrong regardless of who performs them or how powerful they are. They say slavery is wrong even when practiced by a superior species against an inferior one." The council members exchanged glances. This was a completely alien way of thinking. "Do they not understand that the strong rule the weak?" asked Velmectos. "This is the natural order." "They reject the natural order, sir. They believe in something they call equality." While the Velthar leadership struggled to understand human concepts, Colonel Ju Hyun-soo was leading a boarding action that would change the course of the war. His Marine team had infiltrated the Velthar flagship during a battle in the Proxima system. Their mission was simple: capture Commander Veltanos alive. "Remember," Hyun-soo told his team as they moved through the alien ship's corridors, "we're not here to kill anyone unless we have to. We're here to make a point." They found Veltanos on the command bridge directing the battle against a human fleet. The alien commander was tall and imposing, with gray skin and 4 arms that moved with military precision. "Surrender," Hyun-soo announced, his weapon trained on the alien. Veltanos turned slowly. "You are greatly outnumbered, human. My crew will destroy you." "Actually, no, they won't." Hyun-soo gestured to his Marines who had already secured the bridge. "Your crew is currently locked in their quarters watching human movies." "What?" "We hacked your entertainment system and started broadcasting human films. Your crew is apparently fascinated by something called comedy. They keep asking what sarcasm means." Veltano stared at him. "You conquered my ship with entertainment?" "We conquered your ship because your people have never learned to think for themselves. When something unexpected happens, they don't know how to react." Hyun-soo activated a portable holographic projector. Images began playing showing rebellions across the Empire. "This is what's happening on your worlds right now," he said. "Every species you've enslaved is fighting for freedom." The images showed Aquari workers destroying mining equipment, Zethkari craftsmen smashing their workshops, Halani farmers burning crops rather than surrender them. "They will be punished," Veltano said, but his voice lacked conviction. "How? You going to punish entire species? Kill everyone who refuses to work? Then who's going to build your ships and mine your crystals?" Veltanos watched the images in growing horror. "This cannot be happening. We have maintained order for 1,000 years." "You maintained order through fear," Hyun-soo corrected. But humans taught them something more powerful than fear. What? Hope. Meanwhile, on the research station Omega-7, Dr. Lee Yunji was making the most important discovery of her career. She had been studying captured Velthar technology when she found something unexpected in their historical databases. Dr. Shin, she called to her colleague, you need to see this. Shin Woo-jin looked at the data she had extracted from the alien computers. What am I looking at? Velthar history. The real history, not the version they tell their subjects. The data showed something incredible. The Velthar had not always been conquerors. According to this, they were refugees, Yunji explained. Their original homeworld was destroyed by something called the Dark Fleet about 2,000 years ago. Refugees? Yes. They fled across space looking for a new home, but everywhere they went they were attacked or turned away. Other species saw them as invaders. Shin studied the data more carefully. So they became what everyone accused them of being. Exactly. They built their empire because they were afraid. Every species they conquered was a potential threat that they neutralized first. But that doesn't excuse what they've done. No, it doesn't. But it explains it. Fear made them into monsters. Dr. Yunji continued reading. Look at this. The Dark Fleet that destroyed their world. It was described as machines that consumed all life. The Velthar have been running from their own trauma for 2 millennia. What are you suggesting? Maybe we don't have to destroy them. Maybe we can heal them. Back on the Velthar flagship, Colonel Ju Hyunsu was having a very different conversation with Commander Veltanos. Tell me something, Hyunsu said. When your people first met other species, did you try to be peaceful? Veltanos looked surprised by the question. Yes. Initially, we sought only refuge. What happened? We were attacked, hunted, driven, from system after system. Other species feared us because we were different. So you decided to make them fear you for good reason. We decided to ensure our survival. Hyunsu nodded. I understand, but here's the thing. Survival isn't the same as living. You survived, but you stopped living. You became the thing you were running from. We are nothing like the Dark Fleet. Aren't you? You consume other species' freedom. You destroy their cultures. You turn living beings into tools. Veltanos was quiet for a long moment. What would you have us do? Release our subjects and return to being hunted? Who's hunting you now? No one. Not for centuries. Then maybe it's time to stop running. Hyunsu showed him more images, these of human colonies where different species work together freely. This is New Geneva Colony. Humans, Aquari, Zethkari, and 6 other species, all working together. No slaves, no masters. Just people building something together. This is impossible. Different species cannot coexist as equals. Why not? Because Veltanos stopped. He couldn't finish the sentence. Because that's what you've always been told? Hyunsu suggested. Because that's what you've told yourself to justify what you've done? The alien commander looked at the images of the peaceful colony. If this is possible, then you've been wrong for 1,000 years, Hyunsu said gently. But wrong can be fixed. It's not too late to choose differently. On Velthar Prime, the ruling council was facing its own moment of truth. The humans have sent a communication, announced Zekthanos. They wish to negotiate. Negotiate? Velagros laughed harshly. We do not negotiate with inferior species. Sir, with respect, they may not be inferior. Our intelligence suggests that human technology is more advanced than we initially believed, and their tactical unpredictability has proven devastatingly effective. What do they want? Freedom for all enslaved species, reparations for damages, and... Zekthanos paused. And what? They offer to help us find a new way to live, without slavery. The council chamber erupted in angry voices, but underneath the anger there was something else, something that might have been hope. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Velthar Empire had a choice to make. Kang Min-soo had been a slave for 15 years before he learned the word no. He was working in the crystal mines of Velthar Prime, when the human broadcasts started reaching the slave quarters. At first, the Veltar guards tried to stop the transmissions, but the humans kept changing frequencies and using stronger signals. All beings have the right to be free. Admiral Park Soo-jin's voice echoed through the underground tunnels. Slavery is wrong. It doesn't matter how long it has existed or how powerful those who practice it are. Wrong is wrong. Minsu was from the Aquari species, fish-like beings who had been the first to be conquered by the Veltar 3 centuries ago. The Aquari had been model slaves, never causing trouble, always following orders. But something changed when Minsu heard humans talking about freedom. "What does dignity mean?" he asked his human cellmate, Dr. Chen Wei-ming, who had been captured 2 weeks earlier. "It means knowing that you have worth as a living being," Wei-ming explained. "It means you deserve respect just because you exist." Minsu thought about this. In 300 years of slavery, no Aquari had ever been taught that they deserved respect. "The humans say we should stand up," said another Aquari named Kethlan. "But we have always been told to keep our heads down. Maybe it's time to lift them up," Minsu said quietly. The next morning, when the guards came to assign work details, something unprecedented happened. The Aquari workers didn't move. "Work assignments begin now," announced the Velthar overseer. "Mining teams report to Tunnel 7. The Aquari sat still. "Did you not hear the order?" the overseer demanded. Minsu stood up slowly. Around him, other Aquari began to stand as well. "We heard you," Minsu said. "We choose not to obey." The overseer stared at him in shock. In 3 centuries, no Aquari had ever refused a direct order. "This is impossible. Aquari do not resist." "Aquari didn't resist," Minsu corrected. "But humans have taught us that we can choose. You will be punished." "Then punish us," said Kethlan, standing beside Minsu. "But we will not work." More Aquari stood up, then more. Within minutes, every Aquari in the mining complex was standing. The overseer activated his communication device. "Command, this is Mining Station 7. We have a situation." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Oh Seung-hwan was running the most dangerous mission of his life. His stealth ship, the Silent Storm, was deep in Velthar space, broadcasting human culture to every inhabited planet they could reach. "Today's transmission is music," announced his communications officer Park Ji-young. "We're sending everything from classical symphonies to children's songs." "Why music?" asked engineer Yu Sang-ho. "Because music carries emotion," Oh Seung-hwan explained. "When people hear our music, they'll understand that humans feel the same things they do. Joy, sadness, hope, anger. It makes us real to them." They had been broadcasting for 3 weeks, and the results were already visible. Intelligence reports showed that slave populations across 17 worlds were beginning to rebel. "Captain," said Ji-young, "we're receiving a response to yesterday's transmission." "What kind of response?" "It's music, sir, but not human music." She played the transmission through the ship's speakers. It was unlike anything they had ever heard. Haunting melodies that seemed to come from deep underwater, mixed with sharp crystalline notes that sounded like breaking glass. "It's from the Aquari and the Zethkari," Ji-young said. "They're sending us their traditional songs." Oh Seung-hwan smiled. "They're telling us they understand." But the most important message came 3 days later. "Captain," Ji-young said excitedly, "you need to hear this." The transmission that came through was in broken English, but the meaning was clear. "Human ships, this is Kang Min-soo, former slave of Velthar Prime. Aquari workers have stopped working. Zethkari craftsmen have broken their tools. Helani farmers have burned their crops rather than give them to masters. We thank you for teaching us the word no. Send more words. Send word freedom." The bridge crew cheered, but Oh Seung-hwan knew their work was just beginning. Ji-young, prepare a new transmission. It's time to teach them about revolution. On Velthar Prime, the situation was getting worse by the hour. High Commander Zekthano stood before the Empire's ruling council, delivering a report that no one wanted to hear. The contamination has spread to 14 worlds, he said. Productivity is down 60% across all sectors. How is this possible? Demanded Council Leader Velagros. These species have been compliant for centuries. The humans appear to have introduced concepts that our subject species had never encountered. What concepts? Individual worth, personal dignity, the right to refuse orders. Zekthanos paused. They have learned to say no. The council chamber fell silent. The word no had not been spoken by a slave in living memory. What do the humans want? Asked another council member. Freedom for all enslaved species, the end of the empire as we know it. Impossible. Our entire civilization depends on slave labor. The humans appear to believe that civilization should not depend on slavery. Council Leader Velagros slammed his fist on the table. The humans are a minor species with a handful of worlds. How can they threaten an empire that spans 1,000 star systems? They are not threatening us with weapons, Zekthanos explained. They are threatening us with ideas. Back on Research Station Omega-7, Dr. Xin Wu Jin's informal school had grown. From 12 students to over 300, representatives from every enslaved species in the sector came to learn about human concepts of freedom. Today we're going to talk about solidarity, Dr. Xin announced to his mixed audience of aliens. What is solidarity? Asked a Helani prisoner. It means standing together. When one species fights for freedom, all species support them. When the Velthar punished the Aquari for refusing to work, the Zethkari also refused to work in protest. A crystalline being clicked its faceted head. But we have been taught to compete against each other for better treatment. That's how oppression works, Dr. Xin explained. They keep you fighting each other so you won't fight them. But when you work together, you become stronger than any individual group. Show us, said the Helani. Dr. Xin held up one stick. One stick breaks easily. He snapped it in half. Then he held up a bundle of 20 sticks. But 20 sticks together cannot be broken. He tried to break the bundle but couldn't. That's what happens when free beings work together. The oppressor cannot break you. A new voice spoke from the back of the crowd. What if we are afraid? Dr. Xin looked toward the speaker, a small, furry creature from a species he didn't recognize. Being afraid is normal, he said gently. Courage isn't about not being afraid. Courage is about doing what's right even when you are afraid. But what if we fail? Dr. Xin smiled. Then you try again and again. Humans have a saying, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. What does that mean? It means you never give up, ever. No matter how many times you are knocked down, you keep getting back up. Eventually, your oppressor gets tired of knocking you down. The alien prisoners looked at each other with new understanding. Human Dr. Xin, said the Helani, will you teach us how to stand up 8 times? I'll teach you how to stand up 1,000 times if that's what it takes. That night, as Dr. Xin lay on his prison bunk, he could hear whispered conversations throughout the station. Aliens from different species were talking to each other, planning, organizing. For the first time in 3 centuries, the enslaved peoples of the galaxy were working together, and it had all started because one human commander had refused to kneel. Fleet Admiral Kim Jinwoo stood in the command center of the human fleet, watching as more reports came in from across human space. The Velthar had attacked 12 different colonies in the past week, expecting easy victories. They hadn't gotten any. Admiral, said Lieutenant Nam Hyejin from her tactical station, we're getting reports from New Tokyo. The colonists there have driven off a Velthar landing force. How? They used farm equipment as weapons and attacked at night during a thunderstorm. The Velthar tactical computers couldn't predict their movements. Kim Jinwoo nodded. This was the pattern they were seeing everywhere. Humans weren't fighting the way the aliens expected. What about New Moscow? He asked. The miners there collapsed 3 tunnels on top of Velthar ground forces. Then they played loud music over the communications channels to confuse their coordination systems. The Admiral smiled. Humans had always been good at improvising, but now it was becoming their greatest weapon. Sir, said Communications Officer Lee Seojun, We're receiving a transmission from Dr. Shin Woo Jin on Research Station Omega-7. Kim Jin-woo's expression became serious. Omega-7 had been captured by the Velthar 3 days ago. Dr. Shin and his team were supposed to be prisoners. Put him through. The screen flickered and Dr. Shin's face appeared. He was in what looked like a prison cell, but he was smiling. Admiral, I'm pleased to report that our capture has been very educational. Doctor, are you all right? Fine, sir. More than fine. We've been talking to the other prisoners here, and we've learned some very interesting things about our captors. Behind Dr. Shin, Kim Jin-woo could see other figures in the cell. Some of them didn't look human. Who are those people with you, Doctor? Representatives of the 17 species the Velthar have conquered. They've been prisoners here for years, decades in some cases, and Admiral, they're very interested in human concepts. What kind of concepts? Dr. Shin's smile grew wider. Well, yesterday I taught them the word stubborn. Today we're working on spiteful. Tomorrow I think we'll cover revenge. One of the alien prisoners moved closer to the screen. It was a tall, thin creature with blue skin and large eyes. Human, Admiral, the creature said in broken English. Your Dr. Shin has told us about humans saying, better to die on feet than live on knees. Is this true? Kim Jin-woo looked at the alien. Yes, it's true. Then we wish to die on feet, too. The transmission cut off, but Kim Jin-woo had heard enough. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were teaching other species to fight back, too. Meanwhile, on the Velthar flagship, Commander Veltanos was having the worst week of his military career. Report, he ordered his tactical officer. Sir, our ground forces on New Busan have requested immediate evacuation. The human colonists have been pelting our troops with rotting vegetables while playing what they call annoying music at maximum volume. Veltanos stared at his officer. They're throwing food at trained soldiers. Yes, sir. And sir, the psychological impact appears to be significant. Our troops report that the humans are laughing at them. Laughing? Confirmed, sir. The humans find our discomfort amusing. Veltanos sat back in his command chair. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever laughed at the Velthar military. What about the fleet actions, he asked. His space tactics officer stepped forward. Sir, we've engaged human vessels in 7 different star systems. The results are confusing. Explain. The humans don't fight according to any recognized patterns. In the Kepler system, a single human ship flew straight into our formation while broadcasting what their translator identified as circus music. Our targeting computers couldn't track its movements because its flight path was completely random. Random? Yes, sir. The human pilot appeared to be making turns based on no logical pattern. Our computers kept trying to predict where the ship would go next, but there was nothing to predict. Veltanos felt a headache building behind his eyes. Did we destroy the ship? Eventually, sir. But it took 12 minutes and damaged 3 of our vessels before we brought it down. 12 minutes? To destroy one small ship? The pilot kept doing something our computers called barrel rolls while shouting what the translator said were inappropriate comments about our ancestry. Another officer approached. Sir, we have a more serious problem. What now? The humans have begun broadcasting on all frequencies. They're sending messages to every species in this sector. What kind of messages? The officer activated a holographic display. A human woman appeared, speaking calmly into the camera. To every being listening to this message, my name is Admiral Park Soo-jin of the Human Defense Corps. We know many of you have been enslaved by the Velthar. We want you to know that slavery is not normal. Freedom is normal. Fighting for your freedom is normal. Veltanos watched in growing horror as the message continued. The Velthar will tell you that resistance is impossible. They will tell you that you must obey because they are stronger, but strength without justice is just bullying. And humans have a saying about bullies. The only way to stop a bully is to stand up to them. The message showed images of human colonies fighting back against Velthar forces. You don't have to win every fight. You just have to keep fighting. Make them work for every victory. Make them pay for every planet. Show them that enslaving you is more trouble than it's worth. The transmission ended with Admiral Park Soo-jin looking directly at the camera. To every being in chains, you don't have to kneel. Stand up. Fight back. We'll show you how. Veltanos turned off the display. How many species have received this transmission? All of them, sir. The humans have been broadcasting on every frequency for the past 2 days. And the response? His officer looked uncomfortable. Sir, we're receiving reports of unrest on 14 different worlds. Species that have been compliant for centuries are beginning to resist work orders. Which species? All of them, sir. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Veltanos felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. On Research Station Omega-7, Dr. Shin Woo-jin was conducting the most important classes of his life. Today we're going to learn about civil disobedience, he told his mixed group of human and alien prisoners. A reptilian alien raised a clawed hand. What is civil disobedience? It's when you refuse to obey unfair laws or orders. You don't necessarily fight with weapons. You fight by not cooperating. But they will punish us, said a blue-skinned alien. Yes, they will. But here's the thing. If everyone refuses to cooperate at the same time, they can't punish everyone. They need you to work. If you don't work, their system breaks down. An alien that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles. This is possible? Dr. Shin smiled. Humans have been doing it for thousands of years. We call it going on strike. Strike? You stop working until your demands are met. No violence, no weapons. You just stop. The aliens looked at each other with growing excitement. But, said the reptilian alien, what if they threaten to kill us? Then you look them in the eye and say, go ahead, but you'll have to kill all of us, and then who's going to do the work? The alien prisoners were quiet for a moment. Then the blue-skinned alien spoke. Human Dr. Shin, would you teach us more human words? Of course. What would you like to learn? Teach us how to say no. Dr. Shin's smile was bright enough to light up the entire cell. That, he said, is the most important word in any language. Captain Yoon-da-un pressed herself against the wall as 2 Velthar guards walked past. She had been working undercover on Station Keth-7 for 3 months, pretending to be a trader from a conquered species called the Zilan. The station was a major communication hub for the Velthar Empire. If there was news about the human encounter, she would hear it here first. She made her way to the information center where alien broadcasts played on dozens of screens. Most of the news was boring reports about mining operations and tribute collections. But then she heard something that made her stop. Repeat the report from Sector 447, a Velthar commander was saying on screen. Sir, Contact Team 7 reports unusual behavior from species 7749 human. Subjects refused standard submission protocols and initiated aggressive action despite overwhelming tactical disadvantage. Dawn felt her heart race. They were talking. About humans, about her people. Clarify unusual behavior, the commander ordered. When ordered to kneel, the human representative stated that the Velthar should kneel first. When faced with a fleet of 23 vessels, a single human ship attacked. The Velthar commander was quiet for a long moment. This data does not match patterns from previous conquests. Confirmed, sir. Request instructions for handling species 7749 human. Transfer all data to Strategic Command. Mark as priority investigation. Dae-yoon quickly activated her hidden recording device. This information had to get back to Earth. Meanwhile, on the frontier world of New Busan, Han Jae-sung was having his own problems with the Velthar. 3 alien ships had landed near the main colony that morning. Their commander, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms, walked into the town center and made an announcement. This world now belongs to the Velthar Empire. You will provide monthly tribute of 1,000 tons of refined metals and 500 live subjects for work. Details. The colonists gathered around, about 200 men, women, and children. They had come to New Busan to build a new life, far from Earth's crowded cities. "What if we refuse?" asked Han Jae-sung, stepping forward. The alien commander looked at him with large, dark eyes. "Refusal is not an option. All conquered species comply." "Well, there's your first problem," said Dr. Han So-young, Jae-sung's daughter. She had been studying the aliens' equipment since they landed. "We're not conquered. Your resistance will be corrected," the alien said. Jae-sung looked around at his neighbors. These were farmers, engineers, teachers. They had families to protect, but something in their faces told him they weren't going to just give up. "You know what?" he said to the alien. "Why don't you try to make us comply?" The alien commander seemed confused. "You are vastly outnumbered. Resistance is illogical." "Maybe," said old man Park Dong-sik, who had fought in Earth's last war. "But we're human. We don't do logical when it comes to our freedom." While this was happening, thousands of light years away, the news of human defiance was spreading through the Velthar communication network. On the slave world of Keth Prime, a group of blue-skinned aliens called the Helani were receiving their daily work assignments when they overheard two guards talking. "Did you hear about the new species in Sector 447, one guard said. "The humans, what about them?" "They told Commander Veltanos to kneel first." The Helani slaves looked at each other in shock. In 300 years of slavery, none of them had ever heard of anyone telling the Velthar to kneel. "What happened to them?" asked the second guard. "That's the strange part. They're still alive. Command wants to study them." The Helani slaves exchanged glances. One of them, an old female named Kethni, whispered to the others. "Did you hear that? Someone finally stood up to them." Back on Station Keth 7, Captain Yoon was learning more about how the Velthar Empire worked. She had hacked into their database and was reading reports about their previous conquests. The pattern was always the same. The Velthar would arrive at a world with overwhelming force. They would demand submission. The local species would try to negotiate, maybe fight a little, but eventually they would kneel. Every single species had knelt. 17 different worlds, 17 different species. All of them had eventually chosen survival over freedom. But the humans hadn't. According to the reports, Commander Park Soo-jin had not only refused to kneel, she had demanded that the aliens kneel instead. Da-yoon smiled as she read the intelligence reports. The Velthar analysts were completely confused. They kept using phrases like unexpected behavioral pattern and illogical response to superior force. They had studied human history and found records of Earth's wars. The reports noted that humans often fought even when they had no chance of winning. The Velthar couldn't understand why. One report said, "Species 7749 human appears to value abstract concepts like honor and freedom above survival. This behavior does not match standard conquest models." Another report was even more confused. Human subjects appear to become more aggressive when faced with overwhelming odds. This response is unprecedented in our conquest database. On New Busan, Dr. Han So-young had been studying the Velthar equipment with her research team. What she found was interesting. "Dad," she said to Han Jae-sung, "their technology is amazing, but it has a weakness." "What kind of weakness?" "It's too perfect. Their computers, their weapons, their ships. Everything is designed to handle predictable situations. They calculate odds, analyze patterns, and respond based on previous data. So humans don't fit patterns. We do crazy things. We make choices that don't make sense. Their systems can't handle that." Jae-sung thought about this. "You mean they're confused because we won't act like their computer models say we should?" "Exactly. They expect everyone to be logical, to choose survival over pride, to kneel when they're outgunned. But we don't do that." "No, Dad, we really don't." That night, the Velthar commander tried again to get the colonists to comply. He brought out holographic displays showing the fate of other worlds that had resisted. "These species chose to fight," he said, showing images of destroyed cities. "They were eliminated. You can choose differently." The colonists looked at the horrible images. Children hid behind their parents. Everyone was scared. But Han Jae-sung stepped forward again. Let me ask you something. In all these conquests, did anyone ever make you doubt what you were doing? Explain. Did any of those species make you question whether you had the right to enslave them? The alien was quiet for a moment. Rights are determined by strength. That's not an answer, said Dr. Han So-young. That's an excuse. The Velthar commander looked at her carefully. You are not behaving according to standard patterns. Good, she replied. Standard patterns are boring. What the aliens didn't know was that Dr. Han So-young had sent a message to every human colony in the sector. The message was simple. The Velthar expect us to kneel. Don't. The message was spreading from world to world, ship to ship. Soon every human in known space would know that when the aliens came, they should stand up and fight back. The HFY Empire had conquered 17 species by following the same plan every time. But humans were different. Humans were going to rewrite the rules. Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the New Seoul, watching the stars through the large window. His ship was 3 months into a deep space mission when something appeared on their sensors that changed everything. Captain, we have a contact, said Kim Tae-ho from his engineering station. It's big. Really big. Hyun walked over to look at the display. The object was massive, easily 10 times larger than their ship. It had a dark metal surface with strange red lights running along its sides. Any response to our signals? Hyun asked. Choi Min-ho shook his head from the communications desk. Nothing, sir. I've tried every frequency we know. Commander Park Soo-jin stood beside the captain, her hand resting on her weapon. She had been with Hyun for 5 years and trusted his judgment, but something about this ship made her nervous. Maybe they're just shy, Kim Tae-ho said with a weak smile. The joke died quickly when the alien ship suddenly came to life. Bright lights flashed along its hull, and their communication system crackled with static. Then a voice spoke. It was deep and cold, speaking perfect human language. Small vessel, you will stop your movement and prepare for boarding. The crew looked at each other in shock. First contact with an alien species was something they had trained for, but this was not how anyone expected it to go. This is Captain Lee Hyun of the human vessel New Seoul, Hyun said into his microphone. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly contact. There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, even colder than before. Primitive species 7749 human. You will surrender your vessels and submit to processing. Your kind will kneel before the Velthar Empire. Soo-jin stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. Did they just call us primitive? Your resistance is noted and will be corrected, the alien voice continued. Prepare for submission protocols. The alien ship began moving toward them, and weapon ports opened along its sides. Red targeting beams swept across the New Seoul's hull. Hyun looked at his crew. They were explorers, not soldiers. But every person on the bridge had the same determined look on their face. Choi, open a channel, Hyun ordered. Channel open, sir. Hyun was about to respond when Soo-jin put her hand on his arm. Let me, she said quietly. He nodded and stepped back. Soo-jin moved to the communication station and spoke clearly into the microphone. Unknown vessel. This is Commander Park Soo-jin of the Human Defense Corps. We heard your demand and we have a response. She paused, looking at each member of her crew. They all nodded back at her. If you want us to kneel, you'll have to kneel first. The silence that followed was complete. Even the static from their communications went quiet. Repeat your statement, the alien voice finally said. You heard me correctly, Soo-jin replied. Humans don't kneel to anyone. If you want to talk, we can talk as equals. If you want to fight, we'll fight. But we will never kneel. Kim Tae-ho was already working at his station. Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup in their weapon systems. Shields up, Hyun ordered. All hands to battle stations. The alien voice returned, and for the first time it sounded confused. Your species designation, 7749 human, shows no recorded submission protocols. Clarify your compliance procedures. Soo-jin laughed, a sound that seemed to echo through the bridge. Compliance procedures? Here's our procedure. Go away, or we'll make you go away. This response is not in our database, the alien said. 17 conquered species have provided submission. Data. Species 7749 human data is incomplete. Maybe that's because we've never been conquered, Choi Min-ho said loud enough for the microphone to pick up. The alien ship stopped moving toward them. Its weapon ports remained open, but the targeting beams turned off. Commander Veltanos to Fleet Command, they heard over an open channel. Request immediate data on species 7749 human. Subjects are displaying unknown behavioral patterns. Hyun and his crew exchanged glances. The aliens were talking to someone else about them. Sir, Kim Tae-ho said quietly, I'm picking up more ships. Lots more. The display showed at least 20 alien vessels moving toward their position. Each one was larger than the new Sol. Well, Soo-jin said calmly, this just got interesting. New Sol, this is Commander Veltanos of the HFY Empire. You will be taken for study. Your unusual responses require investigation. Investigation? Hyun stepped forward. We're not lab animals. All conquered species are studied before processing. This is standard procedure. Soo-jin shook her head. There's that word again. Conquered. You really don't understand, do you? Explain. We're not conquered. We're not going to be conquered. And we're definitely not going to kneel. Kim Tae-ho looked up from his instruments. Captain, I've got their engine patterns analyzed. If we run now, we might make it to the jump point. No, Hyun said firmly. We're not running. Sir? Choi, Min-ho asked. If we run, they'll think all humans run. If we fight and lose, at least they'll know we fought. Soo-jin smiled at her captain. I like that plan. The alien fleet had surrounded them now. 23 ships against 1. It should have been hopeless. Final warning. Species 7749 human. Submit or be destroyed. Soo-jin took the microphone again. Final answer, Veltanos. Make us. What happened next surprised everyone, including the aliens. The new Sol didn't run. It didn't surrender. Instead, Kim Tae-ho fired up the engines and flew straight at the largest alien ship. Are we really doing this? Choi Min-ho asked. Yes, Hyun said. If we're going down fighting. The aliens seemed confused by this response. Their ships moved to intercept, but slowly, as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Commander Veltanos, came another alien voice over their communications. The human vessel is approaching at attack speed. Impossible. They are greatly outnumbered. Confirmed. 1 small vessel attacking 23 warships. There was a pause. Then Veltanos spoke again, and his voice carried something new. Something that might have been respect. Fascinating. The new Sol fired its small weapons at the alien flagship. The shots barely scratched the huge ship's hull, but the message was clear. They are either very brave or very stupid, another alien voice said. Perhaps both, Veltanos replied. Hold fire. I want them taken alive. Soo-jin looked at her crew. They had just started something that none of them fully understood. But one thing was clear. The aliens had expected them to kneel, and instead humans had chosen to fight. It was a choice that would change everything.